Welcome to Inner Niña Podcast, embracing your inner child while leading with strength. This is a space for Latina women and beyond who are ready to break generational cycles and lead from a place of wholeness. Together, we will reconnect with the little girl inside, the one who dreamed big, felt deeply, and longed to be seen, and honor her as we step in fully into our power. Join me, Maria Benitez, for heartfelt reflections and empowering conversations about identity, healing, culture, and leadership. Each episode invites you to embrace your inner niña while leading with authenticity, compassion, and courage. Welcome back to Inner Niña. Today, our special guest is Schell. Schell is a living testament to God's redeeming grace and the power of transformation. Born in Mexicali, Baja California, and raised in Chicago after immigrating to the United States in 1994, her journey of healing has inspired her life's mission. As the care coordinator for Celebrate Recovery, a Heart Revolution Church, Sandy walks alongside women seeking freedom from life's hurts, habits, and hang-ups. Celebrating over 4 years of sobriety, she passionately helps women break free from shame, embrace God's love, and step boldly into a life of healing, purpose, and hope. Welcome to Inner Niña, Sandy. How are you today, love?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you today?
I'm great to see you. So we were pleasantly introduced by one of our Inner Niña members, Isabel Buelna, who had a very incredible episode with us. And the three of us have something in common. We both are trying to live our life's purpose with God's help. So today we're going to have her tell us her story. So tell us about your life, walk us a little bit of your journey, Sandy, and this is your episode.
Hi, Maria. Thank you so much, first of all, to having me here. It's an honor to be here. I'm super excited to share my story, and I know this is a safe space. I was born in 1990. I was born in Mexicali, as you mentioned, Baja California, and my parents, we migrated to Chicago, Illinois at that time, 1994, because my mom's side of the family, she had support over there and, looking for the American dream and, just a better life for our family. So we said bye, we packed our bags, we said bye to everything and everyone we knew, came over here and we stayed here. This is where I did my kindergarten all the way to high school. At that time, I had no knowledge of English. So that was something that I learned in school. And it was actually a great accomplishment for me when finally, when I was 10, I used to take ESL classes and they were like, oh, you can now be in all full English class. I think as a child, that was my first accomplishment that I felt that, I didn't. And growing up, it was challenging. I lived in an environment where alcohol was, just the culture, the parties, the quinceañeras, just everything. It just seemed normal. And because of that, there was domestic violence from my father to my mother. So she experienced that. And, I have repressed memories of Mexicali because I don't remember much, but two of the memories that I do remember is one time just growing up in fear, just having to run away, having to escape, having to just, finding a safe place. That was kind of like my upbringing. And another time was, when, we were running, my mom was running away from my dad and, she took my sister and for whatever reasons, my mom left me behind. So I know that, took some time to figure out why that would happen, but I understand her reasons. That would say one of the things that I feel that it impacted me most as a child. And then just another time where, I'm sure it was because of the influence. Since we moved from place to place, we did move a lot. So that created a lot of instability. We would be in one place, go to another place. And there was times, my mom is a beauty stylist. There was a time that, we would sleep in the beauty salon and sometimes even either in the couch or on the floor. And one particular day, my dad came looking for my mom and, he was trying to break like the glass window. So those are two main things that I remember as far as just growing up and just fear, inconsistency, alcohol. That's what I grew up seeing. I have a few memories, one of them where like my dad gave me a doll, he did end up going to jail. And then my mom used to always take us to the YMCA and then afterwards to McDonald's, just for us to go swimming and stuff. So if if you just see the picture of, how that shaped my childhood, that was one reason why, everything leads to where I am today. So moving forward, I did middle school, I did high school. I was able to go to like prom and homecoming and at least get to enjoy those activities. I remember at 16 years old, I have one of my best friends, we were so passionate about marching and, we went to this immigration march, trying to fight for our rights. And we were like, one day we're going to be a citizen. We did come to this country with a visa. And due to my parents' relationship, they did divorce eventually. And I think after 13 or 14, our visa had expired. So, we stayed in the country. And, it was always a dream of, one day, like, I want to become a citizen if that is an opportunity and go to school and get a license. It was very limited because of that situation. But that didn't stop me, of course, because, once I set my mind to something, I do my best to try to get it. And then what happened was, in high school, I had my high school sweetheart. So at 16 years old, I didn't have many boyfriends, but I fell in love, and I was a dreamer, always wanted like a Cinderella wedding. I envisioned a family, kids, and, the whole picture. I always knew I wanted a family. And so, as traditional Mexican home, I had never lived with a man. So he graduated a year before me. And he joined the Navy. So, he had asked my dad for hand in marriage, which he did. So at 18 years old, I got married and, 19 comes, I packed my bags and, I said bye to everything I knew and just my life in Chicago, where I was pretty much raised. And that's how I ended up in San Diego and I'm still here. I love it here. And, so, I get married and, I'm into this new military wife role. I'm 19. I'm fresh out of high school. Like everything is just new. I'm naive. Pero tengo la ilusión that like I love this person and I'm married, So as being in a military wife position, we move a lot. So every 3 years, we had to move. And we lived here. We lived here for about like 3 years or so. And before we knew it, we had to move again. But before I did that, I did try to, get a small career. So I did a medical assistant and I went to UAI college here. And then we moved to Guam, which is, by the way, a beautiful island. But that just took me like further away from my family and friends. So it started to create a sense of loneliness, because I mean, every time I moved, I had to start over and, friends and family. And so prior to that, the first time that I had drank alcohol was at 13 years old. It started with my friends going and starting quinceañeras. So that's how it started for me. And the curiosity, the music, the culture, I enjoyed dancing. And it just continued more in this military lifestyle, which was like every weekend. It started off every weekend, parties, drinking. And then I was farther away from my family. So it just like, I was just filling that void, and I didn't even know at the time. I just thought like, I'm just having a good time, I'm relaxing. But it continued and just throughout that time dealing with deployments and, I just feel like in that marriage, there was, lies, there was gaslighting, there was, psychological manipulation. And I didn't see it at that time, but, I was still young. So I ended up being married 10 years from 18 to 28. Moving forward, I did do some school in Guam. I try to keep myself busy and work. And then after that, what happened was then, we moved again from Guam. And before moving, I was 24 years old. And I remember it was the first time that I realized, like, you know what, like I need help. I need a support system. I need like somebody to help me because this is just getting out of hand. So I did an intensive outpatient program at Oasis. And little did I know, after 3 months, it actually was a church. So I ended up going to church. I had the privilege of getting baptized as an adult in the waters of Guam. So that was so beautiful for me and met a lot of incredible ladies, a sponsor. And so then that happened there. After that, we moved back to San Diego. And then that's when I first, at 26, I get my first job at San Isidro Health. And I'm still there to this day. It's still I'm in the billing department now, but that's my home. That's my home, my family there. I just try to create different families depending where God puts me. So I come back, I have my job, and then 2 years later, it's like, okay, it's time to move again. So then here I go again, packing bags. But this time the move felt different. I don't know, just something in my spirit was just, I was starting to feel like, I just keep moving around. And I don't know if that created, like going back to my childhood with just moving around all the time and not having full stability. Maybe I did for those years, but not long term. So we move again. And then I just decided, I said, you know what? I'm going back to my old patterns. Like I need to get away. So I booked myself 30 days to a treatment center in Arizona. I go to that place. I start getting better. And it seemed like every time that I was sober, I would have clarity because God is not a God of confusion. So I would get clarity. And by the time I came back, I wasn't sure if this was right for me anymore. After that, I find out that my grandfather passes away. And, for me, he was my hero. He was my, an example of what a true man is because he was a family man. He took care of my grandma. They're old school. Like, my grandma just took care of the house, the kids, my grandpa worked. And, I was devastated when I found out that he passed away. And I just knew I had to come back to Mexicali. I had to come back to be there with my grandma. I couldn't make it to the funeral, but I wanted to be supportive. And plus I was going through my, I guess you would say separation, because at that time there was a lot of uncertainty. I didn't know what the right thing was to do, whether to stay or leave. So I go to my grandma's and I told myself, I'm going to stay in San Diego. And, if I get my job back, at the clinic, then, I can eventually get an apartment, which I did with my siblings. And then just stay here for a little while. In the meantime, we figure out what's going to happen. So then, time goes by and then, he eventually does ask me for a divorce. And, I was confused. I was, obviously devastated, brokenhearted. I just felt like it was the end of my world. Like it was so devastating at that time. And I started fasting. I started praying. I said, Lord, I just want to know like what to do. And, prayer is real. And when many of the prayers that I've had, he answered that prayer. And I know it was God because he revealed to me, I don't know how in an email, I don't even have these passwords, but in an email, I was able to see that he was already talking to another woman and he was bringing her. And, long story short, that even broke me even more. But I decided that, you know what, like this is it. This is the end. This is the end. And at that time, I didn't realize that I felt like my dreams, of having a family, of having kids, like, died. But now I realize that they died with that person, but they didn't necessarily die with my dreams and what I wanted as a human. So because of that, I was in so much pain and I was grieving. My drinking got heavier. And I started to rely on alcohol to numb the pain that I was experiencing. And due to that, I ended up getting my first DUI in 2019. And I thought, I did the 3-month program. I did the classes, like this will never happen to me again. I learned my lesson, but I was still drinking. In the midst of all this, one thing that my mom always instilled in us was God. So I always had that voice, she always said, instruye al niño en su camino y cuando sea grande no se apartará. And I always knew that in the back of my head. And, we went to different denomination church and in the search of my parents trying to get better. Church was always something instilled in us that we grew up in the church pretty much. But I decided to experience life in my own terms and life showed me what life really is about without God. So I did okay, in that time. And then I started going back to church. I went to the Rock for some time. I did the Most Excellent Way. And then when I was doing community service, that one time with my first one, I remember somebody invited me. We were picking up trash on the highways. And he was like, oh, have you heard of Cornerstone Church? Which is, at that time, Pastor Sergio. And I was like, no. But he's like, oh, maybe you should check it out. So he planted that seed and I said, okay, why not? So I started going back to church. I started trying to get back closer to God. And then that was around the time with COVID hit. So all the churches like closed and it was just, the world was different. So I started, drinking more. And that's just how I coped. The bottle and I were best friends at that time. And by 2021, I received my second one. So I received, now I have 2 and I was battling with just a lot of stuff, and I was just like, something needs to change. It's like insanity doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And it's like in the midst of all that darkness, I knew I needed help, but I just didn't know how to get it. And I just kept sinking deeper and deeper in a deeper hole. And I knew God was with me, but I still felt alone. And I was just like, I thought I had hit rock bottom, but 6 months later, I received my third one. So I received my third one. So now I'm at 3, and it's like, like, what are you doing with your life? Like, what is going on? Like, I didn't know how to get out of this situation prior to getting that, now Cornerstone Church it's Harbor Revolution Church. So one day, in my drinking or whatever, I had told my sister, I said, I want you to take me to church tomorrow. So then the next day comes, and I had forgotten that I had, said that. And she was like, no, we're going to church. So it was a back and forth, because I still felt, a little bit under the influence, and feeling that, like, how am I going to go to church like that? Like I felt that shame that the enemy puts on us. And she was like, no, hop in the shower. We're going to church. So we hop in the shower, we go, and it was one of the best decisions, right? So I get there, and then I said, Lord, you say, come as you are. So here I am. This is how I am, and this is how I'm going to go. And, we'll see what happens. So we go to the service, and, the worship got to me, and I was saying in the name of Jesus. And, by the time we got out, my sister was already asking, like, do you guys have any, like, groups, any recovery groups? Like, my sister needs help. What do you guys have in this church? At that time, there was no Celebrate Recovery. There was 3 angels, 3 women that, prayed for me, which I'm forever thankful for them. I didn't feel 1 ounce of judgment. I felt loved. I felt accepted. I felt, like this is what, God is, He takes us as we are. And no matter what condition that we are. And that just planted a seed in me that I wanted to continue to come to this place. So this was in November 2021. And by January 2022, they opened the first Celebrate Recovery at Harbor Revolution Church where I'm at. And so I started attending. I was still in my struggle. I started attending, and, I just felt like if I just keep going, something's going to register in my brain. And, I'm putting my part, because recovery does take work. But I know that God will help me as long as I do my part. And I kept going. And then by the time 8 months went by, that's when I ended up getting, I think I already had it, but I was still dealing with the courts, like what is going to be, I guess, my sentence. So now I have this judge deciding what my faith is. But I knew that I worship a powerful God, that He had the final say in my story. That it didn't matter what the judge would say, that God had the last say. And I trusted that, and I prayed it. And I just said, Lord, whatever the consequences are, I'm willing to pay for them. I just pray that, you continue to be with me in this journey. So they ended up putting me on the Scram. The Scram is an ankle bracelet that monitors you if you've been drinking. And that was in August of 2022. Yeah. So that's where my sobriety date goes, because August 25th was the day that thing came on me, and I had to have that thing for 8 months. So I said, okay, I put that thing on, they put it on, and, here I am in my journey. I have to do 18 months of classes, which I'm almost done with. I think I have 5 more months to finish. And, after my divorce, like I looked in love in the wrong people, wrong places, wrong things. And I remember one time I had spoken to God, and I said, Lord, like, I don't want anything, to do with men. I want to focus on you. But I said, but you know what's best for me. And if you do have someone for me, I was very specific. I said, this is what I would want. I said, number 1, I would want, a man of faith, because if he knows you, he's going to know how to properly love me. I said 2, preferably if he is in the medical field, so we understand each other in our job work. And then I said 3, if he could be divorced, just because, we'll both know what it is to be married, and we'll have that connection as far as what it is to be divorced. And then say 4, I want to experience having, if that time comes, a family with someone that is their first time too. So I was very specific for that. And sure enough, I was in God's plans. I met somebody. And the funny thing is that this was like right when I was just barely getting sober. So I feel now, looking back, it's like how God did everything, just His perfect timing. So, I was doing overtime and then another clinic, and that's how we, met. This person was only here for a COVID contract because he's from Florida. So he ended up having to go back. And at that time, I told myself, you know what, I want to go to another retreat. So I booked myself 30 days in Casa Palmera, which was the best experience ever. It's a treatment up in Del Mar. And I told him, I said, I'm going to go out to a spiritual retreat and I can't have my phone. And then he said, okay, that's fine with me. I will text you in 30 days. And I just thought like, yeah, right. I was still guarding my heart. So sure enough, 30 days come by and I either have the text message, and I was like, oh my God, I was so happy. So he leaves to Florida, right? And he says like, I want to come back and see you and continue our friendship. Well, 2 months later, he left in October and December, he found a job out here and he said, I'm coming back to San Diego. So he drove all the way from Florida to San Diego. And for me, I felt special because nobody had ever done that for me. I feel like I was always the one traveling for someone else. So it felt kind of nice that somebody would do that for me. So, I'm in the midst of all this. And, I said from the beginning, like, I don't drink. He didn't know at the time my journey. Now he knows, but he's never seen me drink. He's never seen me do anything. And the beauty about it is he doesn't have habits either. He doesn't drink or smoke, which is beautiful because it doesn't hinder my recovery. And moving forward, one thing led to another. So I have the scram on, and by the time, I get a phone call because it's about that time, the 8 months that are coming in, that I'm going to be done from the scram. So, my lawyer calls me and he says, the judge is sentencing you to work furlough. And I was like, work furlough, what is that? So I guess work furlough, it's this place where you go and you have to live there, but you could just like go to work and you got to come back to this place. So of course I'm devastated. Like, oh my God, like I don't really want to go to this place, but I mean, if I have to, then that's what it is. So I prayed about it and I said, Lord, it's in your hands. You know the desires of my heart. I'll let you, take care of this one. So the day comes, the day of the interview comes, and, they asked me the questions and everything. So at the end of the phone call, the lady, she said, unfortunately, you don't qualify for this program. And I was like, what? It had to do because of my work, right? But after I hung up that call, I was just like, wow, like, I know that is God. I had never been so happy to not qualify for something in my life that I was like, wow, like, I know that is God, because if the judge had already sentenced me to go to this place, like, God had his hand in there to say, no, she's not going there. So they were trying to give me all these things in order for me to not go to jail, right? Because the only time I went to jail was like those 3 times. Thank God my dad, he helped me to book me out. So I didn't do time. It was just a couple hours. So then God orchestrated everything, because by the time that same month, I ended up finding out that I'm pregnant. And I was just like, oh my God, like I started crying. I felt all these emotions that I just was like, wow, like Lord, like you're really blessing me with I didn't know at the time with my daughter, right? But like, you're really blessing me, like, in this time with everything that I'm going through, because it was one of my heart's desire. I've always wanted to have a family, and those dreams had died with that person. But God knew that He knows what He's doing, and He wanted to bless me at this time. And I almost feel like she was just the strength that like I needed. So I find out I'm pregnant, right? Best news ever. I was just so excited, scared, all the emotions of like, oh my God, like I'm in this situation and, I'm pregnant, but like, I know I want my daughter. Like she was a planned baby, and like, I'm going to do the best I can, but there was a lot of uncertainty. So I find out April 28th that I'm pregnant. By May 8th, like a week later or something, they're like, okay, well, you're not going to go to work furlough, but we are going to put you on house arrest. So I said, okay, well, at least, I'll be home and, in the comfort of my home. And I told them I was pregnant and everything. So, the day comes, I go, they put on this monitor again, and I'm to do another 8 months, So I said, okay, maybe by the time I'm done, then, I'll be done with my pregnancy. So I I was happy, and another prayer that God granted me, and I'm just gonna say it because I know that this is God and this is the power of God, and I believe He's just so real to me. My second prayer, well, one of my all prayers was, I said, Lord, if there's just any way that you could take this cup from me, like when Jesus being crucified, I said, I just never really envisioned myself pregnant and under this condition, but if these are the consequences, and I'm willing to be obedient, but if there's just any way that you can take this cup from me. At that time, I was still serving and Celebrate Recovery. I was trying to get more involved. I was being faithful every week and, going and everything. It had already been classes that I was starting to give. And I remember one time on Tuesday, I gave a class, and there was a scripture that said they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and He saved them and He broke the chains from them. And I said it with so much power and authority. I just said, boom. And, everybody started laughing, but I just I felt like the chains were breaking off of me. I don't know how to explain it. And 2 days later, I go, and my feet are getting swollen, obviously, because of my condition. So I go in, and they obviously adjusted and everything. And I put my feet up, and before I know it, that chain came off of me. I could say it now because I did my time. I was being faithful. But all I did was just, since I was obedient, God broke that chain from me. And, I just took it. I just took it in my bag, wherever I had to go, and made sure that I went to my classes. I went everywhere. And, the funny thing is when the time was, the last day that I was supposed to wear that thing, was December 9th, because I was supposed to turn it in on the 10th. Well, actually, that's the day that my daughter was born, December 9th, 2023. And I know that's not a coincidence. So God allowed me to enjoy my pregnancy. He blessed me with my daughter in the midst of all this. And it was just like, what are the odds, in like the midst of this process that I'm going to, that I'm being shaped, I'm being molded. Like, you bless me with my heart desire, like I felt in the prize, like I didn't deserve it, but then I was like, I do deserve it. Like I'm being obedient, and it just brought me so much joy. Like it completely changed my life forever. So I finished my time, and, obviously after the last DUI that I had, I hadn't driven for 4 years. It had been 4 years, and God once again showed up for me 2 months ago. He wrote me a check in the bank, and I was able to talk to them. They wrote me a check, and I was able to finally purchase a car after not driving for 4 years. And that's a huge blessing, because I just feel like, I paid the price. I did, what I had to do. And now I'm being rewarded with this opportunity, because driving is a privilege. It's serious. And unfortunately, I had taken it for granted, because at that time I wasn't in the right mindset, and I wasn't making the best decisions. But I definitely have learned my lesson. And, I still have the interlock in there, where I still have to, blow in there for another year. So that's okay, because it's a constant reminder. So throughout this whole journey, like, I have just been able to see God's hand in my life, and how He's manifested from my childhood until now, and how I just never gave up. I just kept going to church. I kept going to Celebrate Recovery. I was pretty much the first student, you would say, when they opened. And little by little, they asked me if I wanted to be part of the leadership. And then before I knew it, they asked me to be like the care coordinator. And I know that is God that has done this, because I couldn't do it on my own. So that just pretty much boils everything into my story of, where I am, where I was and where I am today. And, just to lock it in, I will be 4 years sober on the 25th of this month. And I am just so thankful and so grateful. And I'm so proud of myself that I never gave up. And one of the most important thing is that I'm here to break generational curses, because I know that God revealed to me that everything I had to endure was for my next generation, which is my daughter. And she gets to have a sober mom. She will never see me how I saw my parents, how my parents saw their parents. So I feel like I had to break those chains, and I had to endure that, go through the fire, but not get burned, for my next generation and the next one to come. I had to make the difference. Therefore, I had to go through everything I went through. So here I am today speaking with you, and thank you so much for letting me share my story. And, God is good.
Oh, incredible story. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Kind of got a little teary because I felt it. I felt you sharing your testimony with us. And I'm glad that you say you're working on breaking those generational cycles. That's what this platform is, being able to identify the things that we do are patterns created by generational trauma, right?
Mhm.
You unknowingly started repeating patterns that you grew up watching from your mother, your father. And if you start digging in a little deeper, you will see that they follow the patterns they grew up seeing. And sometimes we're able to break those cycles when we become parents ourselves, or when we want to make sure that we don't pass those toxic traits to our next generation, right? And you and I share that sentiment the same, because I was able to do that because I didn't want my daughter, I have a son and a daughter, but I want each one of them to break the cycles for them, whether my son for the machismo that I grew up watching. I want to make sure that he didn't carry that forward. My daughter growing up thinking that her value was tied to a man, and I want her to give her the voice, the power, so she'd be confident as an independent woman herself, right? But I want to share one of the things that you're sharing this story because it's a journey that I've been in. And I also tell my friends, I said, anything I ask God, He'll give it as long as He knows is what's right for me.
Mhm.
And part of it is you telling him even specific. And I've had this little conversation I shared in a couple of the episodes that I tell my mom, you told you were raised in church, and so was I. I was like hardcore Catholic growing up. So I'm fortunate that I was baptized Catholic as a baby, and I grew up knowing God, right? The difference when I changed a little bit of different, I stopped relating it to a religion and start
Mhm.
relating it more to a relationship. I have a relationship with Him. And my
Mhm.
mom is still very hardcore Catholic. And I tell my mom I have to be careful because I ask God and He'll give me what I'm asking, as long as
Mhm.
He sees it that it's for my greater good. But I've
Mhm.
been telling my mom recently with the journey that I'm in, and this recent journey, and I said jokingly around, I have to be careful how I phrase it or how I ask for things, because he has a sense of humor. He'll give it to me and he's like, wait, and just something that just happened to me recently. Because it's part of where I'm at right now in this journey, just so you know, Sandy. God allows us to go through, and I teach that to my kids, through intervals of life. We have our ups and our downs. And when we have our ups, He wants us to remind us that we are at that peak because He allows us to be there. But He also going to give us tribulations,
Mhm.
because as long as we seek Him, we're going to be okay. We just
That's
have
right.
to, trust the process, right? And I was telling my mom, I said, I have to be careful because for years I was asking Him, align me with my purpose. And I got comfortable, but I wasn't doing anything to kind of align with what I was asking. So I
Mhm.
think He got tired of me asking Him for that. So He's like, let me help you a little bit because you're not moving. So He took the carpet under my feet, and I told my mom, kiddingly now, it's like, I have to be careful. I have to be very specific. And I'm kind of laughing a little bit because you were like very specific how you wanted your husband to the T, right? So I think I just picture God taking notes. Sandy wants this. And when the right time, and kind of like a little bit of what also I say it a lot now, let go and let God, right? So you make your wish list and you're like, if you think this is for me, He'll make it happen. And you were still in denial because, you went on a recovery 30 days. And if you were talking to this guy that almost seemed perfect, he's like, he's not going to wait for me for 30 days. And long before, now he moved from one state to another to be with you. Now he's a family man, and, now you have a beautiful baby girl. So like I
Mhm.
say, careful what you wish for, right? Because He
Right.
will give that to you. You just have to
Mhm.
trust the process, right? So I'm glad that you're in this journey. One thing I also have to kind of recommend, because it's part of healing and being in this platform that I have, talking is healing. And because in our culture, we're told to like just don't say anything, don't let anybody know, because what are people going to say or think?
Mhm.
The fact that you're through church, you're having that support system, there's another healing piece, because we've had a couple of guests that are seeking also additional help through therapy
Mhm.
to make sure we actually really break those generational chains that bind us to the toxic behavior, and
Okay.
that through therapy, through God's, purpose, we're able to heal all these little bits and pieces for us so we can be the better version of ourselves for
Mhm.
our family. And that doesn't mean you're not going to make mistakes, because I just had this conversation with my adult daughter. I
Mhm.
said, I know I've made mistakes, not with intention. I'm trying to be better than my mom was with me. And I said, but I try my best, but I'm able to kind of work things a little bit different than
Mhm.
my relationship with my mom.
Mhm.
But part of the healing is therapy. Have you consider doing that yourself?
Therapy, I haven't lately, but I have had therapy in the past, and it's definitely very helpful. It's something that I've thought about in the last couple of months to see if that's something that I can, re-explore. Because it's always good to, have somebody to talk to aside from, there's different support groups, but that's definitely something to reconsider.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to stay in touch because you're part of this community now. And
Mm-hmm.
part of what, and I think that's his purpose. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you go look at the channel, how we're connecting, people are coming to me through a friend of a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just creating a comunidad that's safe, a platform that, that people can relate to you, that know, what, she's going through what I went through, or she's going through what I'm going through. And it's
Mm-hmm.
a purpose of know it's like you're not alone. And you may have some tips, some ideas, something that you can share with somebody. They'll be able to relate and say, you know what? Now I know someone that came out of that. So there's hope for me.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we're creating with this community. If you go through some of my guests, they come from different walks of life,
Mm-hmm.
but we're creating an opportunity for us to say, you know what, I'm not alone. I'm around these incredible women that you can reach out to any of us and we can provide some kind of guide, or you can reach out just to talk. But the community is growing,
Yes.
and just where you're at, this is all his purpose, because I have no idea how this kind of a little bit how this started is because when he pulled the rug under me, and it was really hard, when I started going through that, but that was his plan. He
Mm-hmm.
got me out of my comfort zone, and I had a friend who suggested I do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm more of a private person. I'm not at social media. I'm not out there. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not really comfortable. But he started talking to me through messages, and he's like, this is what I need you to do, because you're going to meet women. And I do have incredible women that I know that had incredible stories. And just like you are telling their testimony, and you
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be where you're at. I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't because one person is doing it for me. And that's, our Father, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so here I am. I'm like, I started this channel in December, and I have these incredible stories that they're coming to me.
Mm-hmm.
And they all have one thing in common, right? God.
Yes.
God is in almost every episode,
Mm-hmm.
because he takes us out of the darkness that we have to deal with. And he wants us to share the stories. He wants us to say, you know what? I was here, but where I'm here now. And that's all because I asked God for help. And God had bigger plans. He always have bigger and better plans for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going through a lot of difficult times because he allows us to go through difficult times because
Yeah.
he's waiting for us to ask him.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, shackle me from this chains. And he did,
He
right?
did. Wow.
He did. And he validates what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he wants us to share. And so I'm glad that you're sharing the stories. And I get goosebumps when you were sharing some of these stories, because I can relate. I can relate, so it's beautiful stories. So how old is your baby now?
She's 2.5. She'll be 3 in December. So she's growing
You
up.
only have
So
one?
right now, yes, but God knows my desires. So we'll see what happens this Christmas.
That's great. That's great. So you're still working in the medical field?
Yes. So that's another blessing too, because throughout this whole journey, I I didn't lose my job, which thank God. They were very supportive of when I went to get my treatment, and I'm still alive. So everything else, I lost my dog, my car, like everything else is material. But I recently got a new job opportunity with still San Isidro Health in April in the billing department. So now I get to work from home, which is amazing. And I only have to go to the office once a week, well, for payments. But this is a new opportunity because I want to grow with the company. I want to learn. I want to continue to, share my gifts and my qualities. So this is a new learning opportunity for me. And it's very flexible, the times, everything that I'm learning. Like I'm really at a place where like I'm really, really satisfied in my career right now. I mean, I
Are
did it
you,
10 years pretty much
wow,
since
that's great.
26. I'm 36 now.
That's awesome. And your
Mm.
husband is working also in the medical field?
Yeah, he's still working.
That's great. That's great. And so are you Are you also planning on going to school? Are you doing school too, or?
Right now, I haven't because of the baby, but it is something that I wanna go back to. It's just figuring out what I want to do because I did the medical assistant, and then when I was in Guam, I did like the prerequisites. I thought I wanted to be a nurse, but once I got into how and then, like in the urgent care and how it is, I was like, no, I don't think I want to be a nurse. And I did a little bit of sign language, and then I was like, okay, well, I want to be an interpreter. So that's still like a heart desire in there to get that. I think it's the RIDI. But another thing that recently was planted in me was, I mean, more like in the future long run, my sister and I were talking, and it was like, oh, because we just started another business on the side with my dad and my sisters. And, we're going to, get houses and fix them and everything. And we're talking about like, wouldn't it be nice if like one day we would just open up like a sober living home, for some girls. And I was like, wow, like I would love that. I don't know. It just something in me just made me feel like I would love to host one of the places I have and give that opportunity to other girls that, sobriety is the best. I never thought that I would say that I love being sober and remembering, but like this is just like the clarity that you have in your mind is just so amazing. And I know that that comes from God because confusion doesn't come from God. And, all these ideas start coming. But it is something that I do want to explore and see, where God wants to guide me to see what is it, the next chapter as far as what else I need to learn and able to equip myself to move forward with, my heart desires, hoping that it aligns with God's purpose. And, I do want to continue to mentor women. I do believe that I am a leader, and I'm actually this is the second time that I'm doing the 12-step studies. I have another group of girls. We're halfway there, and, all these things are for doing that inner healing work of hurts, habits, and hangups. We have lessons, we have questions, and I just want to be able to use those gifts, for his kingdom, wherever that may take me.
I love that you're saying that because one of the things that, and I was just talking to a friend of mine, I said, when all these thoughts come to your head, they're not really your thoughts. It's like he's telling you what to do. Sometimes we talk ourselves out of it when he's telling us, this is the plan, go ahead and do it. And we're like, yeah, I'm not okay with that. I'm not comfortable with that. And it's not us. We have to go through it. And one of the things, like I literally been having those conversations. Like you'd say, you're asking him. I've been telling my friend of mine, he's been placing these ideas for me because you're talking and he's already talking to me. And whoever's listening to that, we're not crazy. I promise we're not crazy.
Crazy for the Lord.
It's God, I'm giving you grace and I'm giving you credit because that's what he does to me all the time. And I'm like, okay. And it will not leave my thought process. So when I have to release it, it's because like he knows I will keep me awake at night. And so one of the things that he's asking me as you're talking is when we go through this journey, it's like he's telling us, okay, I just got you out of this darkness. Now you have an opportunity to share and teach, share and help, right? So one of the things, I'm working with two friends of mine, and these are newly friends, and we've gotten close because of this process and because God has brought us together. One I have not met, but it's in the same line of you are. We're trying to create a community of doing virtual workshops to educate, make it very accessible, right? Because one of the things that we get hung up on is like, I don't know who to call. I don't know how to do this. I don't know, what the next step is. So we want to make it very simple and say, hey, we're going to have educational workshops, right? In our Inner Niña community, we have a lot that are survivors. They're now sober, right? They've done, whether it was alcohol or drugs, whatever, they're now at this point and they want to pay it forward.
Yes.
And by teaching their coping skills. So whoever is struggling, say, hey, sister, this is what I did to get me out of that. And so we're creating those workshops. So now that you mention it, I may have to tap on you to say, hey, share your steps. Let's educate others and let's go. He wants us to share this at a wider audience. The purpose why this platform is Inner Niña and not Inner Child is because we're bilingual. We're not limiting the resources just because we speak English. But it's something that it's really it has been in my thought for a while now, and it won't go away. And there, I'm just literally trying to lay it out. When are we rolling this out? We're going to start virtually, and then we're going to go into do it in person. How
Wow.
that's going to look, I can't tell you, Sandy. I don't know how that's going to look, because here I am not knowing anything about podcasting, YouTube, social media. And every night when everybody's asleep, I'm learning how to do things. God, I don't know how to do this. Teach me. God, I don't know how to do this. Help me find someone that's gonna, and then all of a sudden I get someone that's like, did you know how to do this? I'm like, no, I'm learning. Just like this workshop idea he's putting in my head. I said, God, I don't know how to do this. Now I have a couple of suggestions of different teachings that we can do that's gonna help a Latina better her life by the little things that we're able to do. You have a personal tip because you've gone through hell and back.
Yeah.
And made your mistakes in between, and you're able to say, you know what, I made this mistake. Let me show you some shortcuts. I used to get lost and I didn't have anybody. And I also was afraid to ask for help. So, not asking for help, how am I going to get the help? Well, now I'm like, hey, I'm here to help you. Reach out. If I don't know the answer, let me reach out to somebody. So I'm going to create those resources where we're becomes the Google Docs, the Google map to anybody that is looking for some resources, some answers. So that's what he's been putting in my head to do. And now he's giving me all these downloads. And it's funny because I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if it's downloads because, all these equipment is listening and started giving me feedback. But no, because I'm having a conversation with you and things are coming through your mouth. And I'm like, it's continued validation for him to say, you're on track.
Right.
You're on the path that I put you in, and you have to keep going. So that's where I'm at right now, Sandy. And you're part of this journey too with me.
Yes, amen to that. I love that you said that because sign me up. I'm ready. I'm stepping in of faith, taking that leap of faith. And like you mentioned earlier, like you weren't big on like you're more private. I'm private too. So when this opportunity presented itself, I was just like, oh my God, but I said, you know what? God has taken me to higher levels. And I just have to be obedient. And, I just shared my testimony, I think last week at Celebrate Recovery in Spanish. Now I'm here with you sharing, and I'm going to be sharing in English this month because we're bilingual at the Celebrate Recovery I go to. And he's just like showing me all these things. And like you said, those workshops, I'm in agreement with that. And, if God wants to use me to go in and speak to other women about my story, about my tips, I'm willing to do whatever it takes because, the enemy wants to shame us. And he did shame me for some time of like, what, like, you being embarrassed of what I went through and, oh, everyone's going to know your secret and this and that. But you know what? Like my sister said, this is not a secret anymore. And there is freedom in speaking out that we're not alone. And there is people that really are struggling. And sometimes you don't even know how to get the help. And it's like, there's nothing to be shameful about it. Because this is a testimony and it doesn't define who you are. My identity is in Christ and it's not in my mistakes. I am not my mistakes. It was just a story, but it's not the end of my story. And, I just want to give back what was freely given to me.
I'm glad you said that because it's not a story, it's a chapter. You lived a chapter of your life. You're now in a new chapter. So we get a chance, we have free will, we have an opportunity for us to say, how do you want this chapter to be? Your eyes are wide open right now because you know that you cannot do what you need to do without his help. And that's what he wants us. Actually, part of what I'm going through right now is like, and I talk to my kids because they see me go through hell and back. And I say, look, I trust the process. I'm not always comfortable with the process, and I've been saying that for decades. I do believe that for every one struggle or bad thing that God allows me to go through, because he allows it to happen, right? It's not that I'm going to question it. He allows us because we have free will. But I was telling the story, and I think I said that maybe a couple of times in this in the channel. It's almost like the enemy and God have a conversation, and he's trying to test God and say, look, if he's actually your child, I bet you I can have him lose faith in you. And his love and trust for us is like, you can try, but you're not. You can try, but you're not. And those are the challenges, when he clouds your mind and sends you in a different direction.
Right.
God is still on the sideline waiting because he knows that we're going to choose him every single time. And I always say that I've been through a lot of difficult, I think since I was born at a disadvantage because, and I haven't shared the story, but I literally just celebrated my birthday. I was talking to my mom, that I was born with fever because she got sick when she was pregnant with me. So when I was born, nací enferma. Like I was fighting for my life. I came out swinging because I didn't wait for the doctor to do anything. Literally, my mom, she's like, I was in a rush to come out, but I came out sneezing and with fever. So my life has been like a little bit of that uphill, right? But I always say every time I go through a struggle, I always say, you know what? For every one challenge that I go through, God rewards me with 10 or more great things. I just have to wait to see what it is. And the waiting is what he tests me on because I always say, it's like, patience is not my virtue. And I think that's where he tests me the most because I want instant gratification. And he's like, no. So in this latest test that he gave me, I was very at peace, very, very at peace, which is not a norm for me, But I think I've caught on to after many decades and say, okay, I need to wait here. And I know you're going to duplicate with blessings. And that's how it's been. And I will share a little bit of that on another story, but me llovió y ahora me está lloviendo bendiciones. Like the things that I went through is sometimes things to break me. And it didn't because I'm like, okay, God, I handed it over to you. Give me peace. I didn't lose one night of sleep in the sense because I trusted that he had a plan. I said, I trust you. I don't know what it is. It feels like shit. What I'm going through right now, my hurt. I cried in silent when nobody's, because, you're a mom and you kind of take it in. I have my little home office. So when everybody's sleeping, I'm over here having a conversation. I was falling. I said, I'm allowed to feel this way. I know that there's a plan. And sure enough, I just had to wait a few months and he revealed to me what the plans was. I didn't know this was part of the plan. I didn't know this platform, but surprise. I am so grateful because I'm meeting incredible Latinas that are sitting here sharing the testimony and giving grace to him. And I wouldn't be able to have done that had I stayed in my comfortable zone, waiting for my purpose, but not doing anything to work on my purpose. So God says, I'm tired of you asking me the same thing and not do anything about it. I'm going to make sure you start now. And so I did. Here I am. And now he's continued to push more stuff. And I'm like, when I tell you right now, que me llueven bendiciones, is because I don't ask for anything anymore. Because I'm like, God, I don't need anything. The only thing I was asking is to give me a little bit more so I can share a little bit more because I've never had like a vice or drugs or alcohol. My thing is healing women from a domestic abuse because I come from a generation from my great-grandmother, my grandmother, my mother. Even I received physical abuse as a child defending my mom and some physical beatings I got from a horrible family member. I knew I became super protective. Didn't want my kids to ever go through that. So I was able to break those generational cycles. So I have a very soft side for me when it comes to domestic abuse because I lived it, I fought it, and I'm trying to create an opportunity where we can continue healing those women who feel they don't have a voice, they don't have no one to protect them. And so that's where my conversation with him is give me the means so I can continue supporting that piece. But what he's giving me is a community where we're helping other little pieces in that community of Latinas, through sobriety, through education, domestic, all these resources we're bringing together. And so this is the learning piece that I'm discovering day by day. And so who knows where I'm going to be in 3 months because that's changing. But my current project right now is the one I just shared with you because it won't leave literally he'll download names of what I need to do this. So I'm like, hey, I have a friend for you. I'm like, okay. That's how fast it's moving, Sandy. No. There she is. So look, through a friend, she recommended me Isabel. And then so when I'm having those episodes, I don't know what I'm going to get because like I told you, it's una conversación entre amigas, right? So I'm like, I don't like asking too much when I start talking to the guests. I'm like, oh, stop right there. Let's have a conversation because I want to engage and get to know you. And then through her, I got to know you. And, I'm sure there's going to be more Latinas coming through because they'll be like, hey, I want to share my story. It's creating a safe space where it's okay for us to talk, where we wouldn't have this platform, right? And so now it's a safe space because your friend has been there and it's hitting other people where people are watching it and some of them get really positive comments because it's relating, it's hitting home, right?
Right.
And that's what he wants. So you're welcome to do this episode in full Spanish too, by the way, because we have una comunidad que solo habla español. Although I put subtitles, my subtitles don't always translate into Spanish. I'm sure maybe through their end, the audience can change it into that. But I have 3 episodes that are solely Spanish. So I want to start also doing also Spanish episodes. So
Yes.
whenever you want, you let me know.
Okay. Sounds like
So
I'm
one of the
excited.
questions I ask all like my guests, one of the many is like, okay, besides your now, your beautiful baby, you're working on day by day in your sobriety and giving back to the church. What else motivates you?
I'm motivated by transformation. I love seeing women come out of darkness and their past and just having that glow back in their face, because I remember how my face was and how the sadness was in my eyes. And I remember even a friend saying like, I could see the light in there, but I see sadness. And, but now it's gone, because I've been through so much and God has given me so much. So just being able to truly see that transformation in another individual, like I just feel like it's my purpose to be able to help another woman, or just anyone in general. I feel like I am very humanitarian, especially, being in the medical field. It's just nature. Like it just comes, it flows out of me. I want to help. But the most important thing is helping the kingdom and doing work for God. So just being able to see the transformation and just see the power and seeing God's power in other people's life, that really motivates me that, this is real work and God is real and he's still healing. He's still forgiving. He's still doing miracles. It's not just a story that happened thousands of years ago. Like it's still happening to this day. And I'm a walking testimony.
Amen. Amen. By the way, you look beautiful. The minute you popped up in your screen is like, I know you're wearing, it looks red, but it's like red orange. So I'm like, right. And that's the first thing I saw you and then you popped in. I'm like, oh, you wear my colors. It's like a red orange and you just have this beautiful aura of you. So, that says a lot if you, because you just mentioned something that you actually are very, you're beaming and it has to do with where you're at right now at this point in time. So what else are you working on?
Right now, it's just besides the 12 steps, it's just pretty much just staying focused, on my family, being the best mother that I can to my daughter. I'm not perfect, but I try to be very intentional with her. And one thing that I do with her that I didn't have growing up was it's okay to talk about feelings. Even though she's only 2, I let her express herself and what she feels. And I have conversations with her. And, if there is a day where, it wasn't my best day, like I apologize to her and I talk to her and is reciprocated because, whenever she makes a mistake, she'll say, oh, I'm sorry, mommy. And I know she learned that from me. So like, I feel like I'm doing a good job as far as like making sure I have those conversations with her, and instill that in her that it's okay to talk about feelings because that was something that I didn't have growing up. It was just, you shove everything down and you repress everything and everything is a secret. And it's like, I don't want her to grow up with repressed emotions. I want her to freely be able to have a voice and be able to be heard and, just being the best I can be for her.
That's great. Great advice. If you had to share some Sandy wisdom with others, what would that be?
That would be that your past is not who you are. It doesn't define you. Like you mentioned, it's just a chapter that happened, but there is, you just turn the page and there's a new chapter. And you're never alone. No matter how alone we feel, God is always there mainly in our darkest moments. And I love that poem, The Footprints, where, you having that conversation with God and he says, I see that you've been in my life through all this time and I see 2 set of footsteps. But in the hardest times where I was going through something, I only see one. Like, why would you leave me? And then he says, that's when I carried you. And, to this day, I still get the chills because, he carries us even in those times where it feels like, there's no way out. There is a way out and there is hope and there is a light outside of the tunnel.
Amen. Yes, indeed. So if
Amen.
you had a chance to go back, and I'm sorry that your little inner niña went through some struggles, some pain, some hurt, some heartbreak. But if you had to go back to talk to your little Sandy, what would you tell her?
I would definitely, I would give her a hug. I would tell her that I love her so much that she's going to go through some things that are going to try to break her spirit, her mind, but to never let go of God's hand because He's going to get you through it. And the times that you're going to feel alone, God is right there with you. And, it doesn't matter what happens. You are loved. You are loved. I love you. And you are safe. And you're going to be okay. You're going to make it. And you're going to change many lives.
Amen. You are. You did, and you will. So thank you for that. And I'm glad that you're now part of my comunidad. And we can work on our healing together and also in paying it forward together. I think we're meant to meet and we're meant to do this work for him and for us together. So thank you so much for spending your time today with me, sharing your beautiful story. And I'm looking forward to staying connected because you and I are going to do more great things together. So thank you for that. Thank you, Sandy, for joining us today and sharing your story. To our listeners, thank you for listening and for holding space for me. I am Maria Benitez, and this is our journey together. Until next time.
Bye.
Thank you, Sandy. Bye.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for holding space for me. And thank you for allowing me to walk beside you as you heal your inner niña. Until next time, please don't forget to follow and subscribe.